Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. It all begins with an emotional storm brewing beneath the peaceful calm of the beach house, where relationships that once seemed unshakable are now hanging by a thread. The silence between Electra Forrester and Will Spencer carries far more weight than any angry shouting ever could, and the pain in the room is impossible to ignore. Will desperately searches for the right words, hoping he can somehow make Electra understand the impossible position he found himself in. He insists that he never wanted to deceive her, explaining that he was trapped between his love for her and his loyalty to his family, feeling pressured to keep their plans hidden even when every instinct told him otherwise. Yet, as heartfelt as his explanation may be, it arrives far too late to erase the damage that has already been done. Trust, once broken, refuses to be repaired by excuses alone, and Electra can no longer separate the man she loves from the secrets he chose to keep. Her disappointment runs deeper than Will realizes, because the consequences of those secrets have rippled through every part of her life. The fallout surrounding Hope Logan's failed launch and the hope for the future diamond has left chaos in its wake. And Ridge Forrester's decision to put her jewelry line on hold has become another painful casualty of the scandal. Everything she had worked so passionately to build has suddenly been placed in limbo, leaving her dreams clouded by uncertainty and frustration. Rationally, she knows Will was not responsible for Ridge's decision. After all, the Forresters had already dismissed Will from the company, forcing him to search for work elsewhere simply to rebuild his future. But emotions rarely follow logic, and the betrayal she feels overshadows every reasonable explanation. To Electra, the man she trusted looked her in the eye while carrying painful truths he refused to share. And that wound is one she cannot simply overlook. As the emotional tension reaches its breaking point, Electra makes a heartbreaking decision that neither of them truly wanted to face. Living beneath the same roof with Will has become unbearable because every room now reminds her of promises overshadowed by deception. She announces that she can no longer remain in the beach house under these circumstances, turning what was once a place filled with comfort into another painful reminder of everything that has fallen apart. Whether this marks the end of their relationship or merely the beginning of a painful separation remains uncertain, but the distance between them suddenly feels far greater than the walls of the house itself. Will refuses to give up without a fight, reaching for every opportunity to convince her that his intentions were never malicious. His voice carries genuine regret, and every word is filled with the hope that she might still believe in the man he truly is. Unfortunately, some wounds require far more than apologies to heal. And despite his determination, it becomes painfully clear that reconciliation is nowhere in sight. Elsewhere, another complicated relationship finds itself standing at an emotional crossroads. Remy Price reaches out to Deke Sharp, not with bitterness or resentment, but with sincere admiration after hearing about Deke's successful launch at Logan. The congratulations are genuine, reflecting a lingering affection that Remy has never truly been able to let go of. For a brief moment, the conversation carries a warmth that hints at happier days they once shared, creating the illusion that perhaps the distance between them is beginning to close. Deke appreciates the kindness and acknowledges Remy's support with heartfelt gratitude, showing that no hostility remains between them. Yet, gratitude alone cannot mend everything that has happened. Some chapters may still carry affection, but that does not always mean they are meant to be reopened. As the conversation continues, Remy quietly reveals what has been sitting heavily on his heart all along. More than anything, he wishes they could find their way back to each other and rebuild what was once lost. His hope remains alive despite every disappointment, believing there must still be a path toward another chance together. Deke, however, responds with gentle honesty rather than false promises. He admits that perhaps someday the future may look different, and maybe time will soften old wounds enough for them to reconsider what they once had. But that day is not today. Though the rejection is delivered with compassion instead of cruelty, it still lands with crushing force, leaving Remy wondering if there is anything left he could possibly do to change Deke's heart. Even as he quietly wrestles with that painful question, Deke remains firm in his decision, refusing to offer hope that he cannot honestly give. Meanwhile, an even greater emotional confrontation is unfolding elsewhere, one capable of permanently changing the bond between a mother and her daughter. Brooke Logan Forrester has reached a point where years of love, forgiveness, and second chances have finally collided with overwhelming disappointment. Hope Logan Spencer stands before her mother desperately seeking forgiveness, hoping there is still a path back to the closeness they once shared. But Brooke's expression reveals something Hope has rarely seen before, a heartbreaking mixture of exhaustion, betrayal, and painful resolve. This is no ordinary family disagreement. The emotional wounds have cut so deeply that Brooke no longer believes another apology can simply erase everything that has happened. The trust between them has been fractured so severely that even a mother's unconditional love struggles beneath the weight of repeated heartbreak. Hope pleads with every ounce of emotion she has left, hoping her mother will remember the countless moments they have stood by each other's side through life's greatest challenges. She longs to believe that family can survive even the darkest mistakes. But Brooke's patience has finally reached its absolute limit. The disappointment she carries has become impossible to hide, and she makes it painfully clear that forgiveness will not come easily this time. Rather than opening her arms, Brooke draws an unmistakable line that Hope never imagined she would face. Every word Brooke speaks carries the devastating realization that actions have consequences, even within the closest of families. Their once unbreakable bond now feels fragile enough to shatter completely, leaving both women standing on opposite sides of an emotional divide neither ever expected to cross. The confrontation reaches an unforgettable breaking point as Brooke makes a decision that changes everything. With tears, frustration, and heartbreak colliding in equal measure, she demands that Hope and Liam Spencer leave her home immediately. The request is far more than simply asking them to find another place to stay. It symbolizes Brooke's refusal to continue pretending that everything can return to normal. Liam had already reassured Hope that they could move into the Spencer mansion if necessary, providing them with another roof over their heads. Yet, knowing they have somewhere else to go does little to soften the emotional devastation of being asked to leave by the woman who has always represented home itself. The possibility that Brooke may be distancing herself from her own daughter, or perhaps even disowning her altogether, hangs heavily in the air, making the moment feel almost unbearable. As the dust begins to settle, the emotional aftermath promises to reshape every relationship caught in its path. Electra walks away carrying a broken heart she cannot yet mend, while Will is left staring at the painful consequences of the secrets he believed he had no choice but to keep. Remy finds himself forced to accept another painful rejection, even as Hope quietly lingers in the background, refusing to disappear completely. But perhaps the greatest heartbreak belongs to Hope, whose desperate search for forgiveness instead ends with the crushing realization that even the strongest family bonds can be pushed to their limits. Brooke has drawn a line she never thought she would have to draw, choosing painful honesty over unconditional acceptance, and the ripple effects of that decision are only beginning. As emotions continue to intensify and loyalties are tested like never before, every character finds themselves standing at a crossroads where love, trust, and forgiveness will determine whether these broken relationships can ever be rebuilt or whether some wounds have simply become too deep to heal. There is a haunting silence that follows moments like these, the kind that settles over every room long after the arguments have ended. It is the silence of broken trust, shattered expectations, and painful choices that cannot simply be undone with a heartfelt apology. Every character now finds themselves carrying the emotional weight of decisions that have altered the course of their lives. And although the confrontations may have come to an end for the moment, the consequences are only beginning to unfold. The wounds exposed throughout the day are far too deep to disappear overnight, leaving each person to wrestle with regret, anger, uncertainty, and heartbreak in their own way. It is becoming increasingly clear that the future of every relationship now depends not only on love, but on whether trust can ever be rebuilt after such devastating betrayals. The emotional landscape has shifted dramatically, and no one will emerge from this storm unchanged. For Will Spencer, the hardest battle has only just begun. Standing alone inside the beach house, he is surrounded by reminders of happier days that now feel painfully out of reach. Every corner of the home echoes with memories of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments that once made the future seem so certain. Now, those same memories have become painful reminders of what he stands to lose. He cannot stop replaying the decisions that led him here, wondering whether there was ever a different path he could have taken without betraying either the woman he loved or the family that depended on his silence. His loyalty to his family may have felt like the honorable choice in the moment, but it came at a devastating personal cost. As regret settles heavily on his shoulders, Will realizes that some truths, even when told with good intentions, can arrive far too late to save the people who matter most. Electra Forrester, meanwhile, walks away carrying emotions that are far more complicated than simple anger. Beneath her frustration lies genuine heartbreak, because losing faith in someone you deeply love is one of the most painful experiences anyone can endure. She remembers every promise they made together, every conversation about the future, and every reason she believed Will would always be the one person she could count on. That certainty has now been replaced by painful doubt. Even though she understands that he was caught in an impossible situation, understanding does not erase the feeling of betrayal that continues to linger in her heart. Her decision to leave the beach house is not driven by revenge or bitterness, but by the realization that healing cannot begin while she is constantly surrounded by painful reminders of what happened. Sometimes the greatest act of self-preservation is creating distance, even from the people we desperately wish we could still trust. As Electra begins packing the pieces of her life together, another painful reality begins to sink in. The suspension of her jewelry line represents more than just a professional setback. It symbolizes dreams placed on hold through circumstances completely beyond her control. She poured her creativity, passion, and countless hours of hard work into building something that reflected her identity, only to watch it become another casualty of the chaos surrounding Hope's failed launch and the hope for the future diamond. The disappointment is overwhelming because she knows she has done nothing to deserve watching her career suffer. Yet, in moments of crisis, innocent people often become collateral damage, and Electra is now experiencing that painful truth firsthand. Every sacrifice she made suddenly feels overshadowed by events she never chose to be part of. The uncertainty surrounding her future only deepens the emotional burden she is already struggling to carry. Elsewhere, Remy Price quietly reflects on the conversation that left his hopes bruised once again. Although Deke Sharp rejected the idea of rekindling their relationship, he did not respond with cruelty or resentment. Instead, Deke's honesty revealed that his heart simply is not ready to revisit the past, no matter how much affection may still remain beneath the surface. That small distinction offers Remy the faintest glimmer of hope, even if it is far from the answer he desperately wanted. He cannot help wondering whether time might eventually heal the wounds standing between them. Until then, however, he is forced to accept a difficult truth that many people eventually face, that loving someone does not guarantee they are ready to love you back in the same way. It is a heartbreaking lesson, but one he must now learn to live with as he searches for the strength to move forward. At the center of the family's emotional earthquake stands Brooke Logan Forrester, whose decision weighs heavily on her long after the confrontation ends. Sending Hope away is not a choice she ever imagined making, and the emotional toll of that decision is evident beneath her determined exterior. As a mother, every instinct tells her to protect her daughter, to offer comfort instead of rejection, and to forgive even the most painful mistakes. Yet another part of her knows that continually overlooking betrayal only allows old patterns to repeat themselves. Drawing a line has become an act of painful necessity rather than anger. Even as she remains firm in her decision, Brooke cannot completely silence the heartbreak inside her own heart. Love has not disappeared, but for the first time, it is no longer enough to erase the consequences of Hope's actions. Hope Logan Spencer finds herself facing perhaps the darkest emotional moment of her life. Walking away from the home where she always believed she belonged feels like losing a piece of herself. The walls that once represented safety, unconditional love, and family now stand behind her as painful reminders of everything that has been lost. Liam Spencer remains by her side, prepared to take her to the Spencer mansion as they had already discussed, offering whatever comfort and stability he can during such an impossible moment. His support becomes one of the few steady things Hope has left to cling to as the world around her continues to unravel. Yet even his unwavering presence cannot erase the heartbreak of knowing her own mother has finally reached a point where forgiveness is no longer freely given. That realization cuts deeper than any harsh words ever could. As Friday's emotional chapter comes to a close, every storyline is left balanced on the edge of uncertainty. Will and Electra remain separated by broken trust that cannot be repaired overnight. Remy must face the painful reality that love sometimes requires patience, even when the heart desperately wants immediate answers. Brooke has drawn the firmest boundary of her life, while Hope is left questioning whether the family she has always relied upon can ever truly become whole again. None of these conflicts have found easy resolutions, and that is precisely what makes the emotional stakes feel so powerful. The days ahead promise even greater confrontations, impossible decisions, and heartbreaking consequences as every character searches for redemption, forgiveness, and a future that suddenly feels far less certain than it once did. The storm has not yet passed. It has only entered its most emotionally devastating chapter, leaving viewers eager to discover whether these fractured lives can ever be pieced back together again.